Sierra Leone 2028, Democracy or a Secret 10-Year Deal. Welcome to the Bold African Voice, BAV, where we cut through the rumors, expose the power plays, and put Africa's democratic future under the spotlight. I'm Ahisatu Kamara Kargbo. Today we ask the tough question, is Sierra Leone's 2028 election about democracy or a secret deal? Fellow Africans, let's talk about Sierra Leone's 2028 elections, an election that is shaping up to be more than just a vote. It's a referendum on democracy itself. Will Sierra Leone prove that ballots still matter, or will politics turn into a recycled play where the ending is already written? Stay tuned, because this story has global lessons for Africa, and maybe even for the world. Imagine if politics came with a timer. Each party gets exactly 10 years, then the baton switches cleanly. A bit like musical chairs, except if you resist leaving when your time's up, the music gets awkward. That's the scenario being shadow dropped on Sierra Leone's political stage, where APC's Wilfred Leroy Cabs Kanu claims the UK has inserted itself into local politics with an alleged 10-year each arrangement to keep SLPP and APC safe from civil conflict. 1. The allegation, puppeteer or protector? Sierra Leone, 2028, Democracy or a Secret 10-Year Deal. Cabs Kanu alleges that President Maada Bio was summoned to Britain and told to stick strictly to this decade-long power-sharing script. It's supposedly a preventive mechanism to stop another civil war, because nothing says peace like a royal nudge from across the pond. But let's unpack this. There's no constitutional clause, treaty, or even polite footnote in Sierra Leonean law that demands such an arrangement. It's purely hearsay so far. 2. A dose of realpolitik and a pinch of satire. If accurate, this agreement would represent the peak of soft imperial influence, more like a polite suggestion than actual law. It's as if the UK whispered, "Don't overstay your welcome," in diplomatic code. And yet, in the absence of formal contract, what prevents a party from ignoring the gentle nudge? None. That said, leveraging the memory of civil war is a handy way to keep parties tame. Remind them that power comes at the cost of chaos. 3. Forward to 2028. Countdown to transition or tension. President Bio, constitutionally barred from a third term, has nonetheless been rallying the SLPP. Let's put emotions aside and ensure our flag bearer wins. Meanwhile, Vice President Jallo touts SLPP's success in infrastructure, health, energy, education, and agriculture since 2018 as justification for their continued governance. The math is simple. Bio exits in 2028, but the party stays. One can't help but chuckle at the irony, urging calm for violent peace by swinging out the war specter as a scare tactic. It's the political equivalent of, "I'm not saying I'm going to the gym, I just might." 4. Africa-wide perspective. Formal peace deals versus political gentlemen's agreements. While Sierra Leone's alleged 10-year each lacks formal backing, other African nations have indeed seen more structured pacts, both formal and informal. Kenya. The 2007 to 2008 post-election violence was mended by the 2008 power-sharing agreement, explicitly documented with rail chairman roles and cabinet allotments. Zimbabwe. In 2008, the global political agreement divvied real power between Mugabe and Tsvangirai for a defined period, again, legal and binding. But many other countries run on tacit understanding rather than signed treaties, just like this Sierra Leonean case. Informal, but everyone kind of gets the memo. 5th, democratic health check and why it matters. If the SLPP dominates after 2028, even with new leadership, the real test will be the quality of that election. Democracy isn't just about competition, it's about transparency, accountability, and legitimacy. Remember 2023? Bio won re-election with 56.7%, SLPP took a parliamentary majority, but the APC and observers decried opaque counting, statistical anomalies, and called for disaggregated polling data for scrutiny. If 2028 follows a similar script, this could be less peaceful transition and more politics as usual, with citizens growing ever more skeptical. 6. Looking ahead. 3 scenarios for 2028. Choose your adventure scenario. Description 1. Graceful handoff, SLPP transitions to new flag bearer, wins broadly accepted election, democracy matures. 2nd. Disputed transition, SLPP's win is marred by suspicions. APC cries foul, observers demand transparency, tensions simmer. 3. Crisis trigger. The agreement breaks, cockroach king politics rise, protests erupt, and the UK's nudge looks more like meddling. 7. A sprinkle of humor, politics with a stopwatch. If democracy were a board game, Sierra Leone might be playing Operation, but with politics. Carefully remove power without triggering a crisis, and the UK, more like a well-meaning grandparent watching over, whispering, "If you two don't share, we'll leave. No dessert." 8. Final thoughts. For now. At present, the alleged UK-brokered 10-year each arrangement remains a rumor without legal bones. Whether this is strategic deterrence or simply political theater, Sierra Leone's political health depends on the upcoming elections being free, fair, and seen as such by citizens and observers alike. Stay tuned for my continuation, maybe diving deeper into comparative cases in Africa, elections monitoring, or even a satirical interview with Her Majesty's imaginary 10-year police. The African pattern, democracy on a lease or democracy on life support. When Wilfred Leroy Cabs Kanu floated the 10-year each arrangement, it raised more than eyebrows. It revived a broader African question. Are we witnessing democracy with fixed-term leases, or are these gentlemen's agreements simply a polite cover for elite pacts? Across Africa, politics has often swung between hard constitutionalism and soft power-sharing compromises. Take Liberia, Sierra Leone's neighbor. After its brutal civil wars, the country never formally adopted rotational party pacts. Instead, elections remained competitive, though haunted by the shadows of warlords and ex-combatants. In Liberia, peace has been sustained more by international guarantees, UNMIL's peacekeeping until 2018, than elite bargains. Contrast that with Nigeria, where the ruling PDP once had a zoning formula. Rotate the presidency between North and South, Muslims and Christians, as a way to keep tensions low. That wasn't in the Constitution either, but breaking it, as Goodluck Jonathan did in 2011, nearly tore the party apart. Sierra Leone's 10-year each claim then fits into this African tradition of gentlemen's agreements designed to soothe ethnic and regional fault lines. They work until they don't. Once the appetite for power overtakes the handshake, it's back to square one. Risk of democratic capture when stability trumps competition. Let's be brutally honest. These arrangements, whether zoning in Nigeria, GNU in Zimbabwe, or alleged 10-year deals in Sierra Leone, tend to freeze out smaller parties. The idea of democratic competition shrinks to a two-horse race. For citizens who may not identify with either SLPP or APC, it's like being told at the buffet that only rice and cassava leaves are available forever. Healthy, maybe, but boring, limited, and not representative. Moreover, external actors, whether the UK in Sierra Leone, France in Francophone Africa, or the US in Cold War Ghana, have often played the referee role. Sometimes with good intentions, avoid war, sometimes with self-interest, resource access, geopolitical influence. The big question for Sierra Leoneans is, who owns their democracy? The people or the power brokers inside and outside the country? 2028, the SLPP's Balancing Act. President Bio's post-2028 roadmap seems clear. He won't be on the ballot, but his party must remain in power. This is classic African presidentialism. Groom a successor, keep the machinery intact, and hope your legacy isn't dismantled by the opposition. Kenya's Uhuru Kenyatta tried the same trick with William Ruto. It backfired spectacularly. Ghana's John Kufuor, on the other hand, managed a relatively smooth handover within his party, helping entrench Ghana's democratic reputation. For SLPP, the real challenge isn't just staying in power. It's convincing a weary population that they deserve to. Economic strains, high cost of living, and lingering distrust over the 2023 elections remain heavy baggage. In 2028, even if SLPP wins fairly, perception of legitimacy may still be the Achilles heel. Citizens' view, the missing piece of the puzzle. Lost in all this talk of agreements and arrangements is the Sierra Leonean voter. Do they get a say in this 10-year rotation fantasy? If elections are pre-cooked by elites, citizens risk becoming spectators rather than participants. One young activist I spoke with recently quipped, "If it's 10 years each, then what's the point of voting?" We may as well flip a coin in 2028. It's humor, but it's also biting truth. Democracy stripped of uncertainty becomes little more than managed theater. Africa-wide risks, from rotational pacts to dynastic politics. If Sierra Leone institutionalizes such a practice, formally or informally, it risks sliding toward dynastic or cartel politics, where power becomes a shared inheritance between two dominant groups. We've seen shades of this elsewhere. Tanzania under CCM, not rotation between parties, but dominance by a single movement, recycling leaders under the same green umbrella. Uganda, Museveni scrapped term and age limits, ensuring not just continuity, but permanence. South Africa. The ANC, though still dominant, has begun to feel the bite of multi-party democracy as the DA and EFF chip away at its monopoly. Sierra Leone's two-party pact could create stability on paper, but fossilize politics in reality. The risk? Citizens' frustrations boil over into protests, which ironically destabilize the very peace the deal sought to preserve. A forward look. 3 emerging dilemmas. 1. Legitimacy versus stability. Will Sierra Leoneans accept peace through prearranged sharing, or will they demand more competitive pluralism? 2. External influence versus local agency. How much weight should alleged foreign nudges carry in shaping domestic politics? The colonial hangover makes this a sensitive nerve. 3. Youth bulge versus old party machines. With over 60% of Sierra Leone's population under 25, how long will they tolerate politics run like a gentleman's golf club, recycling the same old parties and faces? And this is where the story grows sharper. The closer we get to 2028, the louder these contradictions will become. The APC will sharpen its rhetoric, SLPP will double down on continuity, and ordinary citizens will weigh stability against democratic choice. Youthquake versus elite pacts. When the new generation refuses the script. If Sierra Leone's alleged 10-year each arrangement feels like an old boy's handshake in a dimly lit room, then the country's youth are the bright torchbearers storming in, shouting, "Una don try, but it's our turn now." With over 60% of Sierra Leoneans under 25, the demographics alone suggest that any elite pact ignoring the youth will be like trying to stop the Atlantic tide with a broom. The Senegal example, Y'en a marre. In Senegal, youth movements like Y'en a marre have been a thorn in the side of entrenched politics since 2011. When President Macky Sall flirted with extending his stay, young people mobilized across cities, forcing clarity and pushing for a generational shift. The movement recently played a pivotal role in shaping the transition that brought Bassirou Diomaye Faye, Africa's youngest president, to power in 2024. The message to Sierra Leone? Youth are no longer content to be mobilizers during rallies. They want a seat at the table, or better still, to flip the table over and buy a new one. Nigeria. EndSARS and beyond. Nigeria's 2020 Daward EndSARS protests showed how digital natives could disrupt entrenched power structures with memes, live streams, and relentless street protests. Even though the protests were violently repressed, the political reverberations continue, seen in the 2023 elections, where Peter Obi's obedient movement attracted millions of first-time voters. Could Sierra Leone's youth replicate this? Possibly. With social media already weaponized for both activism and misinformation, 2028 could see a new type of politics, meme wars alongside manifestos. Imagine APC and SLPP debating in parliament, while TikTok videos of satire and exposés trend louder than state media. South Africa, the EFF disruption. In South Africa, the Economic Freedom Fighters, EFF, led by Julius Malema, tapped into young people's frustration with unemployment and inequality. Their disruptive red beret politics transformed parliament into a stage for youth rage, forcing the dominant ANC to respond to issues they preferred to sweep under the rug. For Sierra Leone, a youth-driven third force may not yet be organized, but the conditions are fertile. Unemployment, economic hardship, and disillusionment with the two-party cartel. Generational bargains versus elite bargains. This sets up a looming clash in Sierra Leone. Elite bargain. SLPP and APC rotate power, allegedly backed by international nudges to preserve stability. Generational bargain. Youth demand that democracy mean more than two recycled options, pushing for new parties, movements, or candidates that reflect their realities. If the 2023 elections taught Sierra Leoneans anything, it's that legitimacy matters as much as legality. Elite pacts may keep the peace on paper, but without youth buy-in, they risk fueling the very instability they claim to prevent. A bit of humor. The TikTok revolution. Picture this. It's 2028. And while SLPP and APC leaders argue over who deserves their 10 years, Sierra Leone's TikTok influencers start a campaign called Number Now We Turn. Videos trend with skits of politicians being chased out of State House by teenagers wielding smartphones, not machetes. In one viral clip, a young man in Freetown posts, "Dem say na 10 years each, but now we dey suffer 365 days every year. Una nor gree." Within hours, the post has more reach than any SLPP or APC press release. That's the digital reality check facing African politics today. Forward. Look, youth as the game changers of 2028. The forward-looking challenge is clear. If youth movements remain fragmented, the SLPP-APC duopoly survives, albeit with grumbling. If youth consolidate around a fresh candidate or party, 2028 could be Sierra Leone's Senegal 2.0 moment, a generational reset. If ignored, the frustration could morph into unrest, reminding elites that stability cannot be decreed, only earned. And here's where the story gets sharper still. The international community's role, observers, donors, and partners, will either amplify youth voices by demanding transparent elections or reinforce elite bargains in the name of stability. The international community, referees, sponsors, or silent partners, whenever Sierra Leonean politics heats up, the international community dusts off its whistle, ready to play referee. The 2028 elections will be no different. But the big question is, whose side are they really on, the people's or the elites? The UK factor, old ties, new nudges. If Cabs Kanu's claim is to be believed, Britain has already invited President Bio for a polite cup of tea, with a stern reminder not to disrupt the alleged 10-year each balance. Whether this is true or just political rumor, the symbolism is striking. The UK remains Sierra Leone's historical big brother, but in 2028, that dynamic looks less like mentorship and more like an overprotective landlord checking the property lease. The irony? The UK itself doesn't practice 10-year rotational politics. If anything, their recent prime ministers have had shorter lifespans than TikTok trends. Liz Truss barely lasted long enough to make her own tea. Yet in Sierra Leone, Britain is accused of nudging leaders to keep calm and carry on, even if it means freezing true democratic competition. ECOWAS, the firefighter that keeps arriving. Late West Africa's regional bloc, ECOWAS, loves to issue strong communiques, usually after the fire has already burned down half the house. From coups in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger to electoral disputes in Nigeria, ECOWAS has a reputation for too little, too late. In Sierra Leone, if 2028 turns messy, ECOWAS will likely repeat its favorite mantra: dialogue, dialogue, dialogue. The problem is that Sierra Leoneans may not want dialogue over rigged results. They may want accountability. Without teeth, ECOWAS risks looking like the uncle who keeps advising patience while the rice is burning. The African Union, continental watchdog or sleeping dog. The AU, based in Addis Ababa, often sends observers to monitor elections. They file detailed reports filled with phrases like generally peaceful and minor irregularities. Translation? Even if ballots are missing, counting opaque, or opposition parties sidelined, the AU will likely declare the vote credible enough. For Sierra Leone, that kind of language won't inspire confidence among citizens who still remember the disputed 2023 results. The AU's credibility is on the line. If it rubber stamps 2028 without addressing transparency concerns, it risks being seen not as a watchdog, but as a sleeping bulldog in the corner. The US and EU, stability. First, democracy second. The United States and European Union usually sing the chorus of free, fair, and transparent elections. But when push comes to shove, they tend to prioritize stability over democracy. In practice, that means if SLPP wins in 2028 under shady circumstances, but keeps the streets calm, donors may quietly accept it. If APC contests results and sparks unrest, the international community might blame the opposition for destabilization, even if they have valid complaints. This peace first, democracy later mantra has been repeated across Africa. In Uganda, the West tolerated Museveni's endless rule because he kept things relatively stable. In Rwanda, Kagame is praised for order despite shrinking political space. Will Sierra Leone join that list? The donor dilemma, funding democracy while enabling elites. Here's the paradox. International donors fund civic education, electoral commissions, and observer missions in Sierra Leone, all in the name of strengthening democracy. Yet at the same time, they often look away when incumbents bend the rules. It's a bit like giving your teenager money to buy textbooks, then watching them come home with a new PlayStation, and saying nothing as long as they promise to study later. The risk is clear. By prioritizing short-term calm over long-term legitimacy, international actors may unintentionally encourage the very authoritarian drift they claim to resist. Looking forward, what kind of 2028 will the world endorse? 1. The good enough election international observers bless the process with cautious language. SLPP stays in power, APC grumbles, and donors continue writing checks. 2. The crisis mode election disputes spill into protests. ECOWAS and AU fly in with urgent peace missions, and the UK dusts off its colonial-era diplomacy toolkit. 3. The surprise youthquake election. A new candidate or movement, backed by Sierra Leone's young majority, sweeps the polls, forcing the international community to adapt. Spoiler, this is the one they're least prepared for. A touch of humor. When observers observe too much picture, this scene in 2028, AU observers sipping tea, noting minor irregularities as entire ballot boxes go missing. ECOWAS delegate stuck in traffic on Kissy Road, arriving 3 days late to a protest site. British diplomats whispering, "Steady on, old chap, don't rock the boat." and the U.S. Embassy tweeting, "We urge all sides to remain calm," as if calmness is a substitute for credibility. For Sierra Leoneans, it may feel less like guardianship and more like a badly written sitcom, where everyone plays their role, but nobody addresses the plot holes. Next frontier, citizens versus peace at all costs. Diplomacy. The real tension for 2028 lies here. Will Sierra Leoneans accept peace imposed from above by elites and international partners? Or will they insist on democracy from below through genuine competition, transparency, and youth participation? Civil society, diaspora, and media, the unscripted players. While SLPP and APC polish their campaign slogans and international actors fine-tune their remain calm press releases, another force lurks in the shadows: civil society, the diaspora, and the media. These groups may lack armored vehicles or diplomatic passports, but they wield something far more dangerous: public opinion and narrative control. Civil society, the watchdogs that bite, sometimes. In Sierra Leone, civil society organizations, CSOs, often act like referees when the main players start breaking the rules. During the disputed 2023 elections, groups like the National Election Watch, NEW, raised alarm bells about the lack of transparency in tallying results. Though their voices were at times drowned out by official narratives, they still shaped both domestic and international conversations. Come 2028, CSOs may face a tough choice: play along quietly to keep donor funds flowing, bark loudly at irregularities, risking government backlash. Across Africa, we've seen both versions. In Kenya 2017, CSOs boldly challenged electoral flaws, even as the Supreme Court annulled results. In Zimbabwe, civil society criticism often ends in tear gas and arrests. Sierra Leone's CSOs, therefore, stand at a crossroads, either watchdogs with teeth or watchdogs with muzzles. Judiciary and security forces. These are the referees that could make or break 2028. Institutions on trial. Can Sierra Leone's referees keep the game fair? As Sierra Leone edges toward 2028, all eyes are not just on SLPP, APC, or even the international community. The real stress test lies in its institutions: the Electoral Commission, the judiciary, and the security forces. These are the referees of democracy. The problem? In many African contexts, referees don't just blow the whistle. Sometimes they score the goals, too. 1. The Electoral Commission, umpire, or player. The Electoral Commission of Sierra Leone, ECSL, is supposed to be the neutral umpire. Yet, after the 2023 elections, the commission faced widespread criticism for failing to publish disaggregated polling results. International observers like the EU-EOM flagged transparency gaps, while opposition APC outright rejected the outcome. Fast forward to 2028, and ECSL must answer 3 burning questions. Will it publish results polling station by polling station, or keep citizens in the dark? Can it guarantee voter register integrity, avoiding the ghost voter allegations that haunted 2023? Will it act as referee for the people, or as a linesman for the incumbents? Across Africa, electoral commissions have a patchy record. Ghana's EC has built relative trust through consistent transparency. Zimbabwe's ZEC, on the other hand, has been accused of massaging numbers like a DJ remix. For Sierra Leone, ECSL's credibility in 2028 could decide whether citizens accept the results peacefully or march on the streets. 2. The judiciary. Last hope or lost cause. Courts are often the final arena for contested elections. In Sierra Leone, the judiciary has a mixed history, sometimes asserting independence, other times accused of bowing to executive pressure. The 2023 post-election petitions exposed this dilemma. APC supporters questioned whether judges could rule impartially on disputes involving the ruling SLPP. By 2028, if results are contested, the judiciary will either deliver landmark rulings that restore faith in democracy, a la Kenya 2017 Supreme Court annulment, or issue predictable verdicts rubber-stamping incumbents, a la Uganda's endless Museveni rulings. Humor aside, many Sierra Leoneans already joke that court verdicts are written in State House, only stamped in judiciary. If that perception sticks in 2028, expect legitimacy crises to deepen. 3. The security forces, guardians or enforcers. No election in Sierra Leone escapes the presence of the police and military. Their conduct can spell the difference between peaceful acceptance and violent chaos. The problem is that security forces often act less like guardians of the people and more like bodyguards of the ruling elite. During protests in 2022 to 2023, opposition supporters accused the police of excessive force and selective crackdowns. The fear is that in 2028, security forces could be deployed to manage dissent rather than protect rights. Comparisons are sobering. In Nigeria 2023, soldiers intimidated voters in opposition strongholds. In Senegal 2024, heavy-handed policing backfired, fueling youth mobilization. In Gambia 2016, a divided military was the hinge that determined whether Jammeh stayed or left. For Sierra Leone, the big question, will the police and army uphold neutrality in 2028, or will they become the invisible third party in the election? The institutional dilemma, neutrality versus loyalty. Institutions in fragile democracies face a recurring dilemma. Choose neutrality and risk angering those in power. Choose loyalty and risk losing legitimacy with the people. In Sierra Leone, the 10-year-each rumor only sharpens this dilemma. If institutions are seen as enablers of an elite pact rather than impartial referees, then citizens may bypass them altogether, turning instead to the streets, diaspora pressure, or social media courts of opinion. A sprinkle of humor, the referee's playbook. Imagine 2028 as a football match. ECSL is the referee, but one team is already wearing his whistle. The judiciary is the VAR, video assistant referee, except the camera cable accidentally got unplugged. The security forces are the stadium stewards, but instead of protecting fans, they're tackling strikers. At that point, the crowd, citizens, will either throw tomatoes or storm the pitch, and no amount of stay calm press releases from ECOWAS will stop it. Forward, look, the institutional stress test. Sierra Leone's institutions face their biggest test in 2028. If they rise to the challenge, they could entrench democracy and silence rumors of backroom deals. If they fail, they may confirm citizens' worst suspicions, that the game is fixed. Next frontier, the people's verdict. Ultimately, 2028 will not just be about SLPP, APC, or foreign diplomats. It will be about the Sierra Leonean people themselves, their patience, their activism, and their willingness to either accept elite bargains or reject them outright. The people's verdict. When market women, students, and pastors speak louder than politicians. At the end of the day, Sierra Leone's 2028 elections won't be decided only in State House, Parliament, or the British Foreign Office. They will be decided in Freetown's markets, Bo's classrooms, Makini's mosques, and Kono's mining fields. Ordinary citizens, the ones politicians only remember during campaign season, hold the real verdict. Market women, the economists without degrees. Forget World Bank reports. If you want to know Sierra Leone's true state of affairs, just ask the women selling pepper rice and gari in Dovecot Market. They don't need inflation statistics to tell you things are bad. They feel it daily in the price of a cup of rice or a bag of charcoal. By 2028, the market index may be more important than the electoral index. If the cost of living continues to rise, no amount of SLPP ribbon cuttings or APC rallies will buy loyalty. As one trader in Freetown joked after 2023, "We nor to eat manifesto, we to eat rice. Now who go make rice cheap, no we go vote for." Students and youth, the swing vote with TikTok accounts. Sierra Leone students have always been politically active, from the role of Fora Bay College students in independence movements to their protests against bad governance. By 2028, these students, plus millions of under 30-somethings, will decide whether to play along with SLPP APC's elite script or demand a Senegal-style generational reset. And unlike their parents, these youths have Wi-Fi, sometimes, smartphones, often, and TikTok, always. That means they won't just cast votes, they'll shape narratives. One viral video mocking politicians could spread faster than any campaign advert. The youth may not have money, but they have memes as political weapons. Religious leaders, the silent kingmakers. In Sierra Leone, imams and pastors aren't just spiritual leaders, they're political influencers. Their Friday sermons and Sunday homilies can quietly shift opinions. By 2028, if religious leaders feel elites are betraying the people, their pulpits may become the loudest megaphones of dissent. Africa-wide, this isn't new. In Liberia, pastors played a key role in moderating political rhetoric. In Nigeria, churches have mobilized voters en masse. In Mali, imams became central figures in challenging state legitimacy. Sierra Leone's clergy could tip the balance, especially in rural communities where trust in institutions is low, but trust in faith is sky high. Everyday resistance, voting with feet and voices. The people's verdict doesn't only show at the ballot box, it shows in turnout. If citizens believe elections are rigged, they may simply stay home. Low turnout, especially in urban centers, could delegitimize whoever wins. Or worse, people might vote through protests, boycotts, or even diaspora remittance strikes. Imagine this scenario. Citizens boycott state media, flooding instead to WhatsApp groups and diaspora-funded radio. Youth movements organize flash protests against any sign of rigging. Market traders start silent strikes by refusing to pay taxes, sending a direct message to the state. This is where the real battle for legitimacy lies, not in ECSL's headquarters, but in the hearts and stomachs of citizens. Africa-wide lessons. When citizens overrule elites. Senegal, 2024. Citizens refused to accept President Macky Sall's attempt at elongation, forcing a democratic reset. Burkina Faso and Mali. Citizens frustrated with elites welcome military juntas, trading democracy for promises of security. Kenya, 2002. Ordinary Kenyans rejected the ruling party's attempt to cling to power, voting overwhelmingly for change. Sierra Leone could swing either way, a peaceful reset like Senegal or an angry rejection like Mali. A sprinkle of humor, voting day economics. By 2028, the biggest election debate might not be SLPP versus APC, but who go give us free ride and jollof rice on election day? Politicians love handing out t-shirts and food. Citizens love collecting them, but voting differently in the booth. As one student quipped after 2018, "We chop SLPP rice, we chop APC chicken, but no we finger decide the winner. Forward, look. The citizens' red line." For 2028, the red line is clear. If citizens feel robbed of choice again, the risk of protests, unrest, and legitimacy collapse will skyrocket. Sierra Leone's peace has been fragile but resilient since the Civil War. The question is whether elites and their international backers will respect the people's verdict or try to rewrite it. Next horizon, democracy versus disillusionment. The final piece of this puzzle lies in whether Sierra Leone's 2028 elections strengthen faith in democracy or deepen disillusionment, paving the way for authoritarian shortcuts. Democracy versus disillusionment. Sierra Leone's 2028 fork in the road. Every election is supposed to renew hope. Citizens line up, fingers inked, hearts beating with the dream that this time things will be different. But in fragile democracies like Sierra Leone, elections often deliver the opposite: disillusionment. Instead of hope, voters get déjà vu. The same parties, the same disputes, the same promises recycled like old campaign posters. The 2028 elections risk becoming just that, a test of whether Sierra Leoneans still believe in democracy as the best path forward, or whether they see it as a rigged performance, good only for those in power and their allies abroad. The democracy side. Hope for renewal. For democracy to gain ground in 2028, Sierra Leone needs three things. 1. Credible elections. Transparent vote counting, timely publication of results, and impartial institutions. In Ghana, this formula has built one of Africa's strongest democratic reputations. 2nd, competitive politics. A real contest of ideas, not just SLPP versus APC exchanging insults. Citizens must feel their vote can actually change policies, not just personalities. 3. Civic engagement. Youth, women, and civil society pushing beyond rallies, demanding accountability, and holding leaders to their word. Senegal's 2024 youth-led reset proves it can be done. The disillusionment side, democracy on empty batteries. On the flip side, Sierra Leone risks sinking into chronic democratic fatigue. Elections without choice. If the 10-year each rumor takes root, citizens may feel the game is fixed, no matter what ballot they cast. Institutions without independence. If ECSL, judiciary, and security forces repeat the weaknesses of 2023, legitimacy will erode further. Governance without results. If daily life, food prices, jobs, electricity doesn't improve, no amount of democratic rituals will keep faith alive. This is where disillusionment becomes dangerous. Disillusioned citizens don't just stay home on voting day, they open the door for alternatives, strongmen, juntas, or populists who promise quick fixes. Africa-wide warning signs. Sierra Leone isn't alone in this balancing act. Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, repeated flawed elections bred cynicism, paving the way for coups that citizens initially celebrated. Uganda, endless democratic rituals under Museveni have left many citizens skeptical that ballots matter at all. Kenya and Ghana. Despite contested polls, relatively credible institutions have kept citizens engaged, preventing collapse into despair. The lesson: when democracy is hollowed out, it doesn't collapse quietly. Citizens eventually trade it for whatever alternative promises dignity, even if that means authoritarian shortcuts. A sprinkle of humor. Democracy as a generator 1. Sierra Leonean youth compared democracy to a generator. It they make noise every 5 years, but nor they give we light. It's funny because it's true. If 2028 becomes another noisy ritual with no tangible benefits, citizens may simply unplug. Forward. Look, 2028 as a tipping point. Sierra Leone's 2028 elections could tip in one of two directions. Renewal of faith. If credible, they might restore trust and keep the democratic project alive. Collapse of trust. If rigged or managed, they may push citizens into the arms of populists or worse, ignite unrest. Either way, 2028 will not be just another election. It will be a referendum on whether Sierra Leoneans still believe that democracy delivers, or whether it's just another imported gadget that never really worked. Next horizon, the global stakes. The world may dismiss Sierra Leone as small, but its 2028 outcome carries lessons for Africa and beyond. Will Western donors continue their stability first, democracy later mantra? Will Sierra Leone join the trend of democratic backsliding or surprise the continent with renewal? The global stakes. When a small country teaches big lessons on the surface, Sierra Leone's 2028 elections may look like a local affair. A country of just over 8 million people choosing between familiar faces and familiar parties. But in today's interconnected world, even small democracies send ripple effects far beyond their borders. 1. Africa's democratic trajectory. Another domino or a fresh spark? West Africa is in the midst of a democratic storm. Between 2020 and 2023, Mali, Guinea, Burkina Faso, and Niger all fell to coups, while Senegal teetered on the edge before its 2024 generational reset. Sierra Leone sits at a fragile crossroads. If 2028 is credible, it could reinforce the idea that fragile states can still renew democracy. If flawed, it risks adding Sierra Leone to the growing list of disillusioned nations where ballots lose meaning, paving the way for instability or authoritarianism. Africa is watching. For countries like Liberia, Ghana, and Nigeria, Sierra Leone's 2028 outcome will serve either as reassurance that democracy is salvageable or as confirmation that West Africa's third wave is crumbling. Second, donor strategies, stability versus legitimacy. Sierra Leone is donor-dependent, with aid and concessional financing playing a large role in its budget. That gives the UK, EU, US, and multilateral partners, IMF, World Bank, a huge say in shaping political norms. But donors face a classic dilemma: support stability at all costs, even flawed elections, to avoid unrest. Insist on transparency and accountability, risking tension with incumbents. The choice they make in Sierra Leone will echo across Africa. If donors settle for peace without credibility, they may embolden other governments to game the system, knowing the worst they'll get is a politely worded press release. 3. Global narratives, small states, big lessons. Sierra Leone may not move global markets, but it moves global narratives. This is the country that survived a brutal civil war, rebuilt through peace building, and became a poster child for post-conflict democracy. If its democracy unravels in 2028, critics will ask, if even the UN's peace-building showcase can't hold, what hope is there for the rest? And yet, if Sierra Leone surprises the world with a transparent, peaceful, citizen-driven election, it could rewrite the story, small states proving that democracy can rebound where big states falter. That's not just Sierra Leone's lesson, that's a global one. 4. China, Russia, and the geopolitical shuffle. Let's not forget the silent players. If Western donors fumble their credibility message, China and Russia will happily step in, offering infrastructure, aid, or security partnerships without pesky lectures about transparency. This matters because a flawed 2028 could push Sierra Leone further into the orbit of alternative partners. A credible 2028, on the other hand, could anchor Western influence and the liberal democracy narrative in West Africa. In short, even in a small nation, elections are geopolitical currency. A sprinkle of humor, Sierra Leone as the demo lab. One analyst once joked, "The UN treats Sierra Leone like a democracy laboratory. Every experiment is done here. If it works, they publish it. If it fails, they say, well, it's just Sierra Leone." It's a sharp reminder that while elites and donors may see Sierra Leone as a case study, real people live with the consequences, and those consequences, good or bad, ripple across Africa. Forward. Look. Sierra Leone's 2028 election as a global test. The stakes can be summed up simply. For Africa, will 2028 inspire hope or add to the democratic recession? For donors, will they back democracy or settle for managed stability? For citizens, will they believe their votes count or conclude democracy is a rigged play? For the world, will Sierra Leone be remembered as a small country that taught a big lesson, or as another cautionary tale of fragile democracy? Next horizon. After the ballot, what comes next? Because here's the kicker. Elections don't end with the announcement of results. The real test is post-election governance, whether promises turn into policies, and whether leaders respect citizens beyond campaign season. After the ballot, a 500-day governance playbook, whoever wins 2028. If 2028 is the exam, governing 2029 to 2030 is the coursework. Sierra Leone has no constitutional 10-year each clause. 2 5-year terms is the personal limit for presidents, full stop. So whoever takes over must earn legitimacy the old-fashioned way, deliver for citizens, and obey the rules. 1. Legitimacy. First, radical transparency on results. The new government's day one signal should be a legal commitment to publish polling station results, forms, in machine-readable form, with a tamper-evident public archive and an API that parties, media, and citizen groups can independently verify. This isn't a luxury, it's how you diffuse post-election cynicism. And yes, observers asked for this in 2023. How to lock it in? Bake it into the next Open Government Partnership, OGP, action plan, and ECSL regulations, so transparency is not dependent on goodwill. Sierra Leone already has an OGP plan, 2024 to 2028. Use it. 2. Institutions that umpire, not compete. A credible ECSL, assertive courts, and neutral security forces are your 3 referees. ECSL, codify deadlines for releasing disaggregated results, create a public red flag log for tally disputes. Judiciary, fast-track election petitions with published timelines and open court streaming. Security forces, adopt a public election policing doctrine, de-escalation first, monitored by a multi-stakeholder board. Comparative warning signs from 2023, transparency gaps, disputed tallies, are precisely what you must not repeat. 3. A peace dividend. People can taste, not just hear in speeches. Market women don't eat manifestos. In the first 12 months, stabilize prices by coordinating with the IMF program you've already entered. Keep fiscal discipline, reduce arrears, and protect pro-poor spending. Energy reliability. Publish monthly outage dashboards and procurement contracts. Target least cost generation and losses cut. Food security. Fast-track inputs for smallholders and build grain reserve rules. Transparent release triggers. 4. Mining without mystery. Sierra Leone is an EITI country. Use that advantage. Publish all extractive contracts, beneficial owners, and subnational transfers in a quarterly dashboard ordinary citizens can read. This is low-hanging fruit for trust. 5. Youth dividend or youth detonator. The country is very young. Over a third are under 15, with a large 15 to 24 cohort right behind them. So jobs, skills, and dignity determine stability far more than any elite bargain. One-stop first job scheme. Subsidize apprenticeships with tax credits to SMEs, tie credits to verified placements, skills vouchers for digital, agri-processing, and solar installation, pay on outcomes, placement, earnings, civic tech core, hire 1,000 youth to digitize land records, registries, and service portals. 6. Treat the diaspora like investors, not ATMs. Remittances were about 4.6% of GDP in 2023. Real money, real leverage. Create a diaspora co-financing window that matches diaspora grants for local schools, clinics 1-for-1, and issue a small diaspora bond with transparent use of proceeds reporting. 7. Information integrity. Because memes now out-campaign manifestos. Fight rumor with radical disclosure. Weekly data drops on prices, fuel, FX interventions, rice stocks, plain language plus CSV. A cross-party media compact for equal airtime and fact-checking rules in campaign periods, radio plus digital. Support independent fact-checkers and citizen observer networks with micro-grants and training. 8. Security sector professionalism, democracy's seatbelt. Publish a rules of engagement for protests and election duty, plus a public incident report tracker, body cam uploads, disciplinary outcomes. This is how you prevent peace from being confused with fear. Observers in 2023 flagged tallying and tension. Your policing model must not inflame that again. 9. a cross-party compact on the rules of the game. If elite pacts must exist, let them be about process, not outcomes. No third-term tinkering. The Constitution's two-term limit is non-negotiable. A joint pledge to accept audited polling station results. No secret negotiations about sharing years. The 10-year each claim is political chatter, not law, treated as such. 10. Budget credibility. You can measure published citizens' budgets, in-year execution reports, and variance analyses. Align this with IMF structural benchmarks so that credibility equals disbursements equals cheaper borrowing. 11. Service delivery. 5 moment of truth fixes. Pick 5 pain points with fast wins and public SLAs. 1. Birth certificates in 72 hours. Digital queue plus mobile payments. Second, passport turnaround with live tracker. Third, clinic drug stockouts dashboard. 4. Teacher payroll cleanup. Ghosts gone, backlog paid. 5th, land title e-verification, cut disputes, spur lending. 12. Foreign partners. Stabilize and democratize press partners to support both stability and credibility. In 2023, international missions urge transparent tallying. Build that into future assistance. Money released only after verifiable disclosures, results, contracts, audits. Sidebar reality check. What we know versus what's rumored claim. UK warned Bio to obey a 10-year each rotation. Status. Reported by local media based on a politician's assertion. No official UK or treaty confirmation. Treat as political rhetoric unless corroborated. Law. The Constitution caps a president at 2 5-year terms. There's no party rotation clause. Observers, 2023, called for polling station level results to ensure transparency. Concerns over tallying were widely reported. Africa-wide lens. Democracy with receipts. Kenya's 2017 ruling showed courts can reset the board. Ghana's EC has built trust with granular results. Zimbabwe shows what happens when the commission is seen as partisan. Sierra Leone's best path is obvious. Copy the parts that work, publish everything, quickly. A little humor to keep us honest. If governance were a generator, citizens would say, make noise less, give light more. The way to turn down the noise is simple: data first, drama later. Where we go next, leaving the door open. From here, we can drill down into implementation mechanics, model ECSL open data schemas, the legal text for a results publication regulation, the dashboard specs for extractives and budgets, and a quarterly scorecard that citizens, not just donors, can read. We can also map a 100-day, 300-day, 500-day, cadence tying reforms to IMF disbursements and OGP milestones so that credibility pays, literally. Implementation mechanics, from paper promises to street-level change. It's one thing to draft glossy reforms, quite another to make them real. For Sierra Leone in 2028 and beyond, credibility will depend on tight timelines, measurable milestones, and public scorecards. 100-day priorities. ECSL open data launch. Publish results and voter registry APIs. Citizens Budget Digest. Simplify the national budget into 5 pages with charts and audio in Creo. Security Doctrine Disclosure. Release a policing rulebook for protests and elections in both English and Creo, so no citizen is surprised by how officers should behave. 300-day deliverables, digital land registry, pilot in Freetown and Bo with online verification, service delivery dashboards, publish live trackers for clinic drug stocks, teacher payroll and birth certificates, Diaspora co-financing window, launch matching grants for schools and clinics with quarterly disbursement reports, 500-day milestones, extractives, transparency portal, all mining and fishing contracts online with revenues mapped to district-level spending, youth job scorecard, publish data on apprenticeships, placements, and outcomes, not slogans, election reform bill, codify polling station-level publication, ECSL reporting deadlines, and independent oversight board. When citizens see these changes not in speeches but in services, birth certificate in 72 hours, ghost workers gone, clinic shelves stocked, trust shifts from paper to practice. Africa-wide lessons, democracy with dividends. Sierra Leone's 2028 election isn't just about Sierra Leone. It offers three wider lessons. 1. Transparency is the cheapest peace-building strategy. Publishing results, contracts, and budgets costs less than peacekeeping missions. 2. Democracy without dividends is democracy on life support. Citizens will not defend ballot boxes if they see no change in their daily lives. 3. Youth bulges are political earthquakes waiting for a trigger. Treat them as partners in governance or risk them as drivers of unrest. Advice to African leaders and don't fear transparency, weaponize it. Publish results, contracts, and audits before people demand them. It's cheaper than propaganda. 2. Respect term limits. Constitutions are not suggestion boxes. The quickest way to lose legitimacy is to tinker with them. 3. Invest in youth, not just in slogans, but in jobs, skills, and dignity. An idle graduate with a smartphone is more disruptive than a battalion. 4. Treat citizens as shareholders, not subjects. Provide quarterly democracy dividends in the form of real services, passports, clinics, electricity. 5. Work with, not against, civil society. Watchdogs barking isn't bad. It's when they stop barking that you should worry. 6. Balance stability and credibility. Peace without legitimacy is fragile. Legitimacy without peace is chaos. Leaders must deliver both. Summary of key messages. The 10-year-each rumor has no constitutional basis. It is political rhetoric, not law. What is law is Sierra Leone's 2-term presidential limit, which must be respected. 2028 is not just about winning an election, but restoring legitimacy lost in 2023 when tally transparency was questioned. Institutions, ECSL, judiciary, and security forces are the referees, but citizens, diaspora, and media are the ultimate jury. Sierra Leone's youth are the true wild card. They can either reinforce disillusionment or ignite a Senegal-style generational reset. The international community must stop prioritizing stability over credibility. Stability bought on shaky ballots is temporary. Post-election governance is the real test. Delivering democracy dividends, affordable food, transparent budgets, reliable services is the only way to sustain trust. The global stakes are high. Sierra Leone may be small, but its elections carry big lessons for Africa's democratic future. Closing note. Sierra Leone's 2028 election is more than a ballot contest. It is a referendum on democracy itself. If elites, institutions, and international partners choose credibility over convenience, Sierra Leone could once again be a beacon of post-conflict resilience. If they don't, disillusionment may erode the very foundation peace was built on. For African leaders everywhere, democracy is not just about ballots. It's about receipts. Publish them, deliver them, respect them. The citizens are watching, and this time they have smartphones. Thank you for watching The Bold African Voice, BAV. Remember, democracy isn't just about ballots. It's about receipts. Publish them, deliver them, respect them. What do you think? Will Sierra Leone's 2028 election be a democratic reset or déjà vu? Drop your thoughts in the comments, like this video, share widely, and subscribe for more fearless African analysis. Until next time, keep your voice bold and your mind sharper than propaganda.